to call to order the July 23rd, 2020 Brooklyn City Board of Education special meeting. Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Here.
Mr. Neal.
Here.
Mr. Oper.
Here.
Mr. Slattery.
Here.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Here. Okay. Stand for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If anyone has a question or a comment concerning the calendar, just strictly the calendar, they can follow the link to submit their question, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Caleres.
Yeah, so again, if you have questions regarding the adoption or the change in calendar, you can submit a question through the chat box, and I will read that question for the board and for myself to consider. Just a quick summary of the calendar revision. We're looking to provide a little bit more preparation time for the certified staff on the front end of the school year. So just general summaries of the calendar. The first week will start August 24th. That will be an entire professional development week for certified and classified staff, with the records day being in the middle of the week. We're going to do a phase-in of our students starting August 31st. The reason for the phase-in is because our kids have not been in school since middle of March. And part of what we want to do is there are some process and procedures that we're going to need to facilitate with students regarding safety protocols, things getting used to how we're going to do business in this environment. So we want to take that opportunity and make it a teaching opportunity for grade levels, have enough staff on hand to do that. Also, we want to make sure that our students have access to technology, so part of that week we're making sure kids have access to our Chromebooks, and that'll be part of that handout. Throughout the calendar, you see additional professional development days. One of my thoughts, and one of our thoughts in this is we're going to see some rolling closures, or I anticipate some rolling closures with the health situation in the state of Ohio and Cuyahoga County. So we want to provide teachers an opportunity to make sure their online learning platform is where they want it to be for remote instruction. And so we've added those additional days, and you can see that throughout the calendar in blue. Basically, following the contract language with regards to the BEA contract, making sure teachers have their records day, but also adding a little bit of professional development. Those are the general changes. A thank you to Mrs. Blom, BEA President, Mr. Keller, BEA Vice President, and Mrs. Kalish, our Assistant Superintendent, for facilitating and working through the calendar to make these changes. I believe it's a positive thing for both students and staff, and so that would be as we go forward with that recommendation.
Any questions? Any comments?
There's no questions in the chat right now. Does the board have any questions?
Just maybe one comment, kind of AKA question. You know, I know we've discussed as a board, Dr. Tidd, before you got here, about setting up a tuition program. Do
Yes,
we
sir.
have openings in our classrooms under the current model
I think
to allow for maybe parents to put their kids from other school districts into Brooklyn?
so. I'm going to go through the survey, but I'll just kind of give you a little brief. We had about 618 survey respondents. 613. Of that 613, parents had multiple student that were represented in the survey. That comes out to about 945 students in the district. I don't have our exact number, but let's just say we're middle of 1350 for the district. We're probably close to 75% of our students that are represented in the survey. What that means from to answer your question, a space. We're going to have a handful of students, families that choose the remote option. Okay. And what I think part of what we want to do with, and you'll see this through my recommendation, part of what we want to do is we want to make sure that our class numbers are low enough or have enough room in them so that social distancing can take place. And I think naturally when we have students going to remote, that's going to naturally bring down our class numbers. So I would say in a normal, non-COVID world, absolutely, I think we have room in certain grade levels, in certain buildings. I would probably not recommend that this year because the remote option, students are going to have flexibility. Let's say the Caleres family wants to take advantage for a semester. We get to December and say, you know what, it's just not working. We want to change. We're going to allow families to flow back into the in-person environment. So I would say in a normal non-COVID year, we would definitely take a look at that. I would say let's see where we're at with our commitment with remote learning, because I'm hoping that will help alleviate some of our higher numbers in some of our grade levels with lower section numbers.
Any other questions?
Do we have a deadline as far as opting in for remote or not?
Yeah, we're gonna once we talk about the plan this evening, we're gonna send that commitment out to families next week. We're gonna probably look at middle of August somewhere as the commitment. We want to go too late because the remote commitment will allow us to look at our staffing, and we may have to make some adjustments to our staffing based on where those grade levels and where students are. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna have to look at that a little bit. We're gonna probably shoot for, Mr. Oper, probably middle of August. So we're gonna give families a good 3 weeks to decide what format, what they want to do.
And with their schedule, they can adjust. The staff can adjust curriculum and all that.
Exactly, and that's gonna be part of our professional development work in August. So if we know, I'm using hypotheticals here, let's say we have 5 students in first grade that have chosen the remote option. Their preparation may look a little bit differently than if second grade has 20.
Right.
And so we would look at if there's needed staffing adjustments to kind of fulfill some of those needs. Mm-hmm. But our first step is talking about our plan tonight, releasing our plan to the community and families, and then looking for that commitment to the online learning. Once we have those numbers kind of solidified, we'll be able to make some real good plans in terms of our curriculum instruction and what that remote looks like for each grade level.
Have we lost any students?
I'll say outside of the normal, students going to a parochial school from 8th grade to 9th grade or parents move, I haven't noticed anything from my office. Mrs. Baker hasn't mentioned anything to me regarding students leaving because of this situation. So I would say no right now.
Where are kindergarten registrations right now?
About on par where they've been in the past. I can't speak to specific numbers, but on par where they've been in the past.
And they're last minute
They
situation.
will. They will. And I would guess that our current health situation with COVID might be dictating some families whether or not I want to send my student early or not. So, I can anticipate some impact. I don't know what that looks like yet. There's no questions, Mrs. Barczyk, in the chat.
Anyone else? Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barczyk.
Yes. Okay. Now we're gonna
I want to think about it. Hey, Bobby, do you have an extra power cable? I have
mine if you want to use it.
Yeah, because I'm dead. I don't know why. I had it on a charger, but somebody hit my.
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Take your time. 23rd, 2020, Brooklyn City Board of Education regular meeting. Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Here.
Mr. Oper.
Here.
Mr. Slattery.
Here.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Here. Can we stand for the pledge? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Now on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Ted Caleres.
Okay. I will step up here. I will refer to this PowerPoint. This evening, what I want to do is take a little bit of time to go over our update, our first update regarding our opening plan for August. We've been working since I came on board in a transition capacity to update, to figure out what does school year 2021 look like for our staff, excuse me, our staff and our students. First step was to send out a survey. I think I mentioned before that when I took this snapshot this morning, it was 604 responses. It's up to roughly 613 right now. What that means from a student capacity is that we represent about 9, if I added all those numbers up there of grade levels, we're somewhere in the 940 to 950 range in terms of parents with multiple students. So we have a really good representation of what families are looking for, or at least the input they gave regarding what they want the school year to look like. We asked the survey, we kept it kind of simple, it pretty straightforward. The purple is full-time return, the red is full-time remote, the orange is a blended learning hybrid, I'll refer to it, basically half-day sessions, and the blended learning in the green is both in-person and online. And you can see we're pretty much in thirds. We have about 28% of our families who right now are considering the fully remote option. We have another third of our families, 30% of this survey, that want to come back full. And then we have roughly, let's just say 42%, somewhere around there, who want some type of blended format, either a half-day schedule or an A-B schedule or something in between. Really a difficult decision to figure out what is our school year gonna look like in our current health status. But this is the results. It was very informative. I was really happy with the results in terms of the responses we got back, and I thought that was a good start for us. One of the other questions we talked about, will you support your child wearing a mask during the school day? About 82% said yes, and another 18% said no. And I will say that 18% ranged from, I don't want my student to wear a mask for 6 hours a day or 8 hours a day, to my student may have a underlying health issue or a disability which may prevent him or her from wearing that mask. So there was always a good underlying reason, I believe, on the no. But that's where we're at in terms of our family responses versus mask versus no mask.
Is it safe to assume that the 18 fall into the 28% that want to go online strictly?
I would guess that. I haven't correlated the two, Mr. Oper, but I would guess that has happened, that there's some correlation there. And the fully remote, going back, fully remote parents, it was strictly, it's just not time to come back yet. Under the current health situations, I would rather keep my student at home than bring them into the school environment, and I respect that as a parent. Looking at the calendar, we talked a little bit about this. We've adjusted the calendar. Week of August 24th will be professional development, with also Teacher Records Day for staff. The week of August 31st, we're gonna dedicate that to kind of the phase-in of our students, orientation meetings for our parents. Our kids haven't been in school since middle of March, and so there's a big thought from our work groups that we're gonna need some time to acclimate students back into the district. We have some education to do too. This isn't a normal start for us, so procedures, how you do this, what door you come in. There's gonna be a little bit of a teaching that first week, so we felt it was better to do that slower and with more staff around to help that phase in. And so that's why that week of the 31st. Now that Friday will be no school for students, but we will also have a PD day for staff. That's gonna allow us a little bit of reflection time. Okay, what worked, what didn't work, and what do we have to adjust before, as you can see here, September 8th, we will be back to school for all pre-K through 12 students. And then I'll go over the kind of our format in a second here. So, looking at the current risk level guidelines in the state of Ohio, we're going to align our plan to basically 3 levels. Level 1 and level 2. If Cuyahoga County has a level 1 or level 2 designation, we will be a traditional all-in regular school day, regular week. So nothing would be different in terms. Now, all of the same precautions would be in place, of course, but from a length of day for our students, it would be a traditional school day. Level 3, where we're at right now in Cuyahoga County, that's our hybrid schedule. And then if you look at level 4, if we ever reach level 4 as a county, which I equate to where we were back in the spring, that would be fully online remote for our families, for our students. Right from the start, we're gonna give our families, like I've talked about, the optional remote learning option. So right from the beginning, you can declare, I would like the remote learning option, and then that group of students will go into this category. If families are not declaring remote learning, then we will consider them the traditional in-school format, which then they'll fall under the level 1, 2, 3, and 4. But right from the beginning, we're going to give a remote learning option, and we're gonna send that survey out early next week for families to begin to commit to that option. So now we can start making staffing decisions, and we can see where our numbers are. Do we have higher numbers in one grade level versus another? And that will help as we build our educational instructional plan going forward. But we heard very clear in the survey, there are some families that are not comfortable with them coming back. And as a dad of 2 at home, I completely understand that. We wanted to honor that request with our families. So they will have that choice right from the start, okay? Now, if you're not declaring, I want remote learning, and real quick with remote learning, if you're declaring remote learning, you're at home 100% of the time. You will not come to school here for any classes here at Brooklyn City Schools, right? I know we have some other things to consider with Polaris, preschool, things like that. We're working through some of those other choices for kids, but we're gonna work through some of those. But generally, if you're at home getting your classes. Level 1 and level 2,
What about athletics?
yeah, if family.
I know they'll be
No,
eligible.
Absolutely. Well, here's the thing. I have a personal view on that, and I have a professional view on that. My professional view is we would allow, as long as we're not in level 4, if we have families say, I'm gonna be remote learning, we're gonna allow them to participate in our extracurriculars and our athletics.
What about band? Would they be, they be able to come in every day for the band class, just the band class?
We'd have to, that's a great example. We'd have to work through some of those options.
Okay.
We'd have to work through that example, but that's a great question. I don't know. I know Mr. Sullivan practices on Wednesdays, so we'd have to kind of work through some of those
Yeah, and
specific. Here's the thing, there's gonna be some outlier that we're gonna have to say, okay, what do we do in this situation? That's okay. We'll work through those for kids. But to answer your question, generally, yeah, we're gonna allow students to participate in athletics and extracurriculars and co-curriculars, even if they choose the remote option.
Dr. Ted, just a quick question going back to Polaris. So if a parent chooses to go with the remote, is there a simulation with Polaris to do the same?
Polaris has told us, hope I'm not letting the cat out of the bag here, but Polaris has told us their schedule will be 8 to 10:30 and then 12 to 2:30. And I know Mr. Hare at the high school is working on a daily schedule to help accommodate our Polaris students. So yes, there'll be some assimilation. We're gonna have to work through the little intricacies and what we don't want to happen in this situation, especially for our high school students, we don't want them to become credit deficient because of this. So again, there'll be some outliers and maybe we have to give them an additional class online to supplement because they can't fit it in their schedule. We're gonna do that. But yeah, we're working on a plan to assimilate the Polaris schedule with our schedule. Great question. Did I miss anything, Mr. Roper?
That's pretty much half of my Polaris things.
It'll save us time on the back end.
Okay, so we talked a little bit, level 1, level 2, all in, unless students are enrolled in the remote learning option. This would involve cleaning protocols, physical distancing as much as possible, adjustments to how students will enter and exit the building, changes on how we manage transitions and movement throughout the building during the day. So the thing becomes, even though we're in the building and we're on a all-in schedule, it's going to be a different schedule. Let me go back real quick because I missed the most important part there. Level 1, level 2, all in, pretty easy, that we know what that schedule looks like. Level 4, remote, we know what that schedule looks like. In a remote option, kids would have a daily schedule. So I think I'll use my Cuyahoga Heights example. When we flipped over in the spring, we were unprepared, and we did the best we could. And so what I learned from that is that kids need structure. I'm using this as a dad example because I'm telling you my kids who quickly flipped their schedule were sleeping until 10, 11 o'clock. But with our remote schedule, the building principals are looking at a daily schedule. So if we ever get into that purple level for a countywide, we will have schedules Monday through Friday for students to be actively engaged with their teachers. And that's going to be pre-K through 12, working through some of those details now. The hybrid was the trick for us. That goes back to the survey results, trying to make sure our plan matches with everybody who responded to the survey. A really difficult task to do. We landed here Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, basically a 3/4 of a day schedule. It's going to model somewhat of our early release schedule that we've had here in the past in the district. So students will go, I'll just say on paper, 8 to 1:30, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesdays would be remote, at home. And that's where we're at now. We're in a red situation. So it would be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 8 to 1:30. 1:15 we would begin dismissing students in phases. Wednesday, remote. Originally, we were talking about having the remote day on Fridays. A couple things came out of those work group conversations. First and foremost, we want to make sure we're doing some extra cleaning. I don't want to say deep cleaning because we're still cleaning on the other days, but we're going to do some extra cleaning on those Wednesdays. With no students here, that's a good opportunity to do that. Secondly, our remote students, we don't want to wait until the end of the week for our remote students to connect with teachers. So that Wednesday in the middle time, in the middle of the week, gave us a good opportunity for our teachers to connect with our remote students, because our remote students are still going to be taught by Brooklyn City Schools certified teaching staff. And that was important to me, and I think important to the work groups. We still want our kids with Brooklyn teachers. And so that's where that Wednesday fell. Preschool will be really on the same schedule they've been in the past. But they were Monday through Thursday in the past. Now we're just moving their Friday to Wednesday. So they'll be the same Monday, Tuesday, off on Wednesdays, here Thursday and Friday.
What do you, lunches for the level 3, what do you plan on doing with lunches?
We're working through those right now. Yeah,
Okay.
so we're working through the plan now. We're exploring grab and go for
Okay.
some of our older kids.
Okay,
We're exploring some lunch for our little kids, because our little ones, we're gonna do this, and it still has to resemble school somewhat, so we felt very strongly that having a first or a second grader sitting in class for 6 hours probably wasn't the right thing to do. So the building principals and the work groups are working through the specific details. So their schedule's not gonna look the same like it did last year on that early release schedule. They're getting creative. We're looking at our staffing. Are we feeding kids in the classroom? But the bottom line is we still have to feed kids, especially our younger students, at some point during the day, and we're working through those details.
so kids will be fed, that's.
The kids will be fed, and so, for example, on Tuesdays, when we don't have school on Wednesdays, we'll double them up. So if families need an extra lunch to cover Wednesday, we'll be able to do that. And that's another advantage, I think, of having it in the middle of the week, giving families to just kind of grab and go for that. Okay?
Doug,
Yes, please.
with that, if we're in this hybrid with the early release, I know I've had a couple parents ask me about the CATS program. That'll just start earlier?
Yes,
And then you
so,
just stay
so
here
yeah,
and roll
so,
right into
so
it?
we're working through those issues right now, and we're gonna we'll start the CATS program at 1:30 and try to fill the gap. I'll give you an example. So I live in a school district on the west side of town, and they're using an A and B format. One of my wife's friends is in the medical field in North Olmsted, and she has to really look at her employment options, because it's going to be really hard for her to cover her children 3 days a week. I think the difference between what happened in the spring and now, in the spring, nobody was working. Everybody was at home, pretty much, in some form. Unless you were considered an essential worker, fire, police, medical, teachers, something like that. Those are essential workers. You were at home. I think what we've found now is that people are starting to slowly get back to work. So if we went to let's just use the AB model. Mr. Neal, you're in the A group. You go to Mondays, Tuesdays, off the rest of the week. Mr. Slattery, you're in the B group. You are off Monday through Wednesday, and you go Thursday, Friday. That puts a significant strain on family dynamics. And so from my perspective, there's a lot of things you have to consider. Safety and health, first and foremost. And in the hybrid schedule, I think this achieves everything that the survey is looking for. It doesn't give everybody everything they want, right? Because some school districts are all in or remote. I think there's a consideration. We have to listen to our families. We have to listen to our community. I see this schedule as a middle ground for everybody. And again, I understand it's still gonna cause strain on families with the early release and things like that, but we wanna work through those issues with our families. I think this is the best option for our families, and I want our kids with our teachers the safest they can be.
And just so there's no confusion, just so I understand it, but for everybody that's gonna go back and I'm willing to bet this is probably gonna be one of the highest viewed videos for any of our meetings. We go to level 4 purple, everything's off. There's no CATS program, there's nothing.
There's no
You're
CATS
on your
program.
own to-
Everybody is remote, they're,
Okay.
right, and that would be a significant health issue in the county. I will say on Wednesdays, there will be no CATS program.
Okay.
So as good, thank you for bringing that, on the remote day, there will be no after-school care for our families.
And-
So families will have Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday in the hybrid.
But they know that now.
And that's why we're releasing this now, so we can hear our families, we can hear their concerns, we can, maybe there's something we didn't think of, and if we have time, if we need to adjust, we can. I think this really does cover everything we need.
If we're at level 4, all activities, correct, not just cats, all activities are off,
So,
everything.
everything,
Everything,
so
sports.
no football, no soccer, no band, no Spanish club, no key club. If
No
we're
board
gonna,
meetings?
what was that?
No board meetings?
If we're saying kids can't come to school in a level 4, then we're not gonna go to practice and this and that. That's the commitment where I'm at with that. Okay.
So what does a parent do, Dr. Ted, on Wednesdays if they can't find a family member to be at home with the online student?
That's a concern, and I know, and I don't have that answer.
Is there a private company that can?
There may be. I think the problem with daycares now are they're filling up pretty quickly because daycares are under a different mandate than schools. Daycares have been specifically told, and the daycare rules flow to our preschool. So daycare rules say 1 staff member for 9 kids in a room. So what I've been finding is that daycares are quickly filling up because they don't have the capacity to change their numbers or use the numbers they've done in the past. Now, I've heard that they're gonna relax some of those rules, but we haven't seen that yet in law. And so right now, they're under that mandate.
So could a group like the Boosters come in and use our facilities on Wednesdays
I
to do
think-
a kind of a pseudo CATS program?
I think we would have to talk about that. I'm not opposed to it by any means, but I think we would have to talk about that because we then become a daycare. And then we have to fall under certain rules in terms of what those look like, so we'd have to talk about that.
Unless we use it for instruction, but like a study hall type.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think that would be, I think that's something we'd have to look at the data,
Right.
see where our numbers are, and then see if we can find some avenues to help our families.
But this gives families the opportunity that if they know now, rather than worrying about 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, they basically have to worry about 1 day.
Correct. I'm hopeful with the 1:15 dismissal, 1:30 dismissal. I hope that's not such a burden on our families as opposed to 3 days a week. That's my hope in this. And again, this becomes the impossible decision, right? I mean, so we have to balance our families want to come back versus some of our families don't, and what does that look like? And I think doing this and giving families notice now will allow them to make decisions on whether or not they want to take advantage of the remote option. Because
I think they'll settle in.
I think that's a
Yeah.
conversation.
I think they
We're
will.
giving
I
them
mean,
money.
you look at what happened with graduation, everybody was freaking out and had a million ideas, and this school was doing this, and this school was doing that, but once we came up with a plan and said, this is what we're doing, everybody kinda just
Yeah.
folded right in, and it worked out well, and I think they just wanna know.
Sure.
Right.
Yes,
One thing I want to mention with level 1, level 2, and level 3, we will do required masks for K through 12. For our students, obviously staff are under that mandate anyway. Excuse me. We're gonna work towards the preschool, because we want our preschoolers to wear them too, but we know that there's developmental issues there, and that's gonna be an education process with our preschool teachers. But generally, K through 12 masks will be required. Now, does that mean we're not gonna give kids mask breaks? Of course we are. We're working through the plan on that, but generally I want families to know K through 12 will have to have masks, and there will be some considerations. Like we saw in the survey that family members said, well, I can't have a student wear a mask like the ones we have on for X amount of time. Well, you know what, if you can't wear a mask, you can wear a face shield. So we will allow face shields as the alternative to that mask for our families who think their children are gonna struggle with that mask.
So it's a trade-off. They can mask or a shield.
I'm fine with those, absolutely.
But they
Yep.
have to,
They have to have some covering on the nose and the mouth, so that's either in the form of a mask that we all have on today, or a face shield. And that's a family choice, and that'll be a parental choice. And what I would encourage families to do now is start working with their children on wearing those. You know, and we have to do that now. And I think, I'll be honest with you, our little ones are really good about it. You know, and I think we're really. But if you haven't, I would recommend families start working with your kids now, because August and September can be brutally hot in Ohio. You know, we've had some of our hottest days middle of September. So we want to encourage. But again, here's the thing: we're working into our plan opportunities for kids to get that mask break, to get those. But we're really worried about transitioning in the hall, in lunchroom, the big areas where big groups of kids are interacting. We definitely want to see those facial coverings.
How goes the purchasing for supplies like that?
Mrs. Neal's doing a great job. We're working on a supply night. What we would ask parents is to have masks for their children as part of their supplies. We of course will have families that forget or kids that forget. We have an ample supply right now. I think the issue we find is we have 612 school districts and really the entire country going after the same.
That's what I was wondering,
The same spot.
availability.
So
Yeah.
we have mass in reserve. We want to use those sparingly because in case something happens, but we want families to start purchasing multiple, because here's the thing, one mask, the mask I had on last week wasn't very conducive for me talking, it bothered me. The one I have on today is much better. So I think kids need to get a feel of what mask they want to have or have not used during school.
Have we reached out to the county's doing a program? The reason I know is my wife,
Yeah.
that's what she does.
Yeah.
She works for the county, 3 days a week, she's actually putting PPEs together.
Yeah, Mrs.
they-
Neal's been working hard in terms of contacting companies. We have some physical alterations to the facilities, our offices and OT rooms and PT, and we're working on those things now. Cleaning supplies, that'll come later, details that I will present to the board. I wanted to kind of present the big skeleton today, the umbrella of what it's gonna look like. At the end, I'm gonna ask for an update meeting in middle of August, so building principals, assistant superintendent, director of pupil services can be here to talk about specific building plans, and so that we can kind of see how it's all gonna come together. And we're still working through that with our work groups.
That's not my job.
Dr.
That's
Ted,
Yeah.
are you gonna do a daily survey for staff and students and parents? And ask them if they've been exposed to anybody with COVID?
Well, there's gonna be a health check requirement for students. Right now, our plan is to take temperatures daily for kids coming into the building, and so.
So if a kid has a temperature, it's automatically assumed that they
Well, we're
have-
not gonna assume anything. We're just gonna say that, like, here's the thing. Whether it's COVID or not COVID,
Right.
if you have a fever and you're a third grader, you need to go home, right? So I think what we've done in the past, at least previous life, we had a 24-hour rule for fever. We're probably gonna change that rule in terms of maybe 48 or 72 hours. Working with Barb Manley, our nurse, who we're very fortunate to have, we met with her today, in terms of what some of our health procedures will be. And listening to her today, she said a lot of our students, a lot of our children who are getting COVID aren't exhibiting temperatures.
Right.
They're exhibiting other symptoms that look like every run-of-the-mill day sickness for students. So what I don't want to happen is I don't want to automatically, student comes to the clinic and is sick. I don't want to go to they have COVID. All right, so we're gonna take each situation one by one. We're gonna work through those situations. We're gonna adjust some of our policies and procedures at our buildings to help accommodate that. But I think we have to just take this 1 week at a time and work through and what happens week 1 may look a little bit different than week 2, 3, or 4. But we have to get used to being back here, and it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to those new procedures. So yeah,
How do we go deeper though, if the student shows up as asymptomatic?
yeah,
Take a temperature is fine.
right,
But we find out that family members have been exposed to COVID
Yeah.
or have COVID. I mean, how do we go a little deeper?
we're gonna work through the Board of Health on that, you know, and we're gonna and they're I have a general framework now of what that means, and that involves quarantine and isolation for specific staff members or for specific students. It's July 23rd. I'm hoping we get a little bit more guidance from Board of Health on kind of the specific do's and don'ts. And what I want to make sure is that we're following what the Board of Health recommends. I'm not a medical professional. If something happens, I'm calling somebody, right? I'm gonna call somebody and say, okay, here's the facts, what do I do? We're gonna work through that, but we'll quickly, Mr. Singer, we'll quickly identify, figure out what the situation is, and then notify whoever we have to in that situation.
So do we have like the mechanism to flip that switch? So the child is in school, in the regular, in-school
Yeah.
program, and then for some reason the child is exposed or has COVID. And then we flip the switch.
They
and
would
put them right
automatically
online.
go to that's correct. They'll automatically go into that remote option.
Okay.
What we need to explore a little bit deeper as a staff and as policy procedures, what happens if one of our staff members has to go into isolation either because they're a positive test or somebody close to them is a positive test and they're required to isolate. So we're working through those things, but yeah, the purpose of that front end PD and the staggered PD throughout the year is to give our teachers an opportunity so that if I have to, say for example, 5 students have to flip to remote for some reason, it's a seamless transition for kids. Right? We don't want that gap in learning. That's what we found. That's what I found out back in the spring. There was a gap. We lost learning. We don't want that time. When kids are in that remote mode, they're gonna follow a specific schedule so that it's seamless.
I would assume that, say, God forbid a child does get this, and they're out for the period of time, 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
Yeah.
whatever it takes. It's just like if a kid had mono or anything else, keeping up with work will help to do whatever we can.
Keeping up with
help
work,
catch
won't be penalized. Yeah, here's the thing, we need to be ultra flexible in this environment. We have to, this is a tough situation. We might be in this situation for a couple of years, we just don't know. And so the more flexible and more supportive of our kids and our families we can be, we will. Obviously we still wanna have those educational expectations, but if somebody's sick, like let's just say you got the flu, how much work can you really do, right? But it's gonna be no different in terms of somebody's out for mono, we're gonna work through some of those things. What the exception is, we're gonna follow quarantine rules per the Board of Health. We talked a little bit about this, we're gonna ask parents, I think my message here is this. We're gonna do all we can to screen kids as they walk in the door. Our teachers do a fantastic job of that right now. Ted's sick, Rick's sick. do a fantastic job of that now. What I would encourage our families to do is not send our students to school sick. And I understand all the restraints on a family's professional schedule, things like that. But if we have a sick child here that's exhibiting symptoms, we're gonna ask you to come get them. So I think that's an important prevention piece for us in general. Like, just don't come to school sick. And because remember, we're not going to just assume you have COVID. You know, it might be something else. When we get to the flu season, we're gonna have to work through some of that anxiety of trying to figure out what's the difference between flu and so we want families to keep kids home that are not feeling well, because that will help us here prevent just general spread of sickness, a prevention in general. Like, even if it's just flu, we don't want the flu going. When I was in Cuyahoga Heights, our elementary got hit really hard with flu back in December and January. I mean, hard. Some school districts in the area had to shut down. So we want to prevent that as much as we can. We don't want to spread it. Keep kids home when they're sick. That's an important prevention piece for us, just in general. So our next steps really are I'm gonna advertise the reopening plan to families tomorrow, and announce that to the staff hopefully this evening via an email. Mrs. Kalish has done a masterful job of coming up with the remote option commitment form. That'll be sent out next week, so we can really start to get an idea of where parents are with where they're coming back or not. That will help us dictate some staffing and some of our professional development. I'd ask that on our website that parents and families update their contact information, or if you want to add somebody to contact information, because probably won't be sending out a hardbound letter to families. We'll do it via our constant contact system. So I'd ask families, whoever wants to be part of my messaging, to get on that list. So work groups. So the greatest thing about this is we started this work about two and a half weeks ago, and we have a preschool group, we have a K through 5 group, we have a 6 through 8 group, and we have a 9 through 12 group, all being led by either Mrs. Jones with the preschool, or our building level administrators are doing their individual work groups. And our teachers and our staff are working through the details of the plan. And so today was kind of the unveiling of this is what we want it to look like, and they've been working really hard to talk about transitions and class sizes and lunch and all of those things. What I'd like to do is give them I've asked them to give me recommendations on August 3rd. We're then going to meet as an administrative team that first week in August to kind of finalize everything. I'd like myself and the administrative team to present the findings and to present kind of the details of the plan at an August 10th, 11th, somewhere that week board meeting, so that if there are major questions from the board, major questions from families, that we can we still have time to adjust before the opening of school. And we'll have really specific details in terms of what schedules look like, what this looks like. That's some of the things I want the board to see in terms of what the plan looks like.
Is everyone, August 10th, can everyone do Monday, August 10th? We need to know the board. What day is Polaris's meeting?
11.
The 11th, okay, so can everybody, the 10th would be the
I'm
best?
good.
Okay. So
And
the
we can
10th
start earlier too. We don't have to necessarily start at 6. We could start whatever time you want to start. I mean, we're not bound by the 6 o'clock. We could start earlier, later. Not later, earlier. But if you want to start early, we can definitely do that, because I anticipate
It being lengthy?
that's gonna be lengthy, that's all we're gonna talk about. I'd like to, in some form, open that up to the community, so if the community has questions, giving them an opportunity to ask questions via Zoom in the chat and get a little bit of engagement with our families, because I want our families to really hear the nuts and bolts of the plan, because some of our families still may say, okay, I don't know yet, I really wanna see I wanna hear the details of what it looks like.
What's the earliest people can get here?
5?
5. Anybody?
That's fine,
Okay.
5 can be.
5, we'll do 5 then.
We'll probably need room 173 though.
I would think so, Mr. Neal, that probably makes sense. Yeah. I
Or
would
the
think so.
auditorium.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think
All
so.
right, at 5:15, somebody come down here and get me, because I
I'm
won't
gonna
remember that.
guess that we're gonna have quite a crowd here.
No,
We're
I'm
not
not gonna,
gonna-
we're not gonna open it up
we can't
to,
have
we're
the
not gonna
public
open up
here.
publicly, we'll open it up via, the technology.
We can't have the
Oh,
public here.
oh,
So
we
we'll-
are,
yeah,
okay.
we'll allow
So it's
them
not
to
a
enter-
physical,
Correct, we'll allow them to interact electronically.
okay.
Yeah.
But the staff will be,
The staff will
I'll
be
be
here.
here.
The
and us.
administrative team will be here,
Administrative
yes.
team and us.
So 173 should be fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so the 10th at 5. And
So
173.
that's the, thanks for the time, that's the general plan. We'll announce that tonight and tomorrow, and we'll start soliciting feedback, and as I get numbers in terms of our remote option families, I'll share that with the board via the weekly updates.
Are we okay with transportation, all our transportation?
Yeah, we are. Good question. I talked with Parma last week, maybe it was this week, I don't know, they're running together. We're good. Yeah, they're able to accommodate our early schedule. They're able to accommodate Polaris, so we should be okay with transportation. Yeah. I think not having a big transportation need in the district is actually working towards our benefit this time, because a lot of districts choosing that AB option, that transportation's driving that mode. Okay, great, thank you.
What have you done with all your free time?
Now, on to the treasurer's report. Mrs. A, do you have any report for us this evening?
I don't have any updated report for you, but I did get access to the financial statements and all the information that I needed, so I wanted to mention that, but
Okay.
Good.
no
Thank
further
you.
report.
Thank you so much. Now on to comments from board members and board committee reports. Mr. Slattery?
I actually have, we've had no committee meetings for anything, so I have no report.
Okay.
I just appreciate all the work that's been going in, trying to get this schedule set.
Mr. Neal? No, Mr.
I have nothing, same thing.
Okay. Mr. Oper?
Polaris. We don't usually have a July meeting, but with everything else, that's changed. Ms. Michelle Bissell from Strongsville was sworn in, replacing Mr. Richard Micko, who resigned his post due to a conflict of interest. Restart plans and schedules, as Dr. Ted mentioned, have been sent to all associate districts and incoming students. The Polaris schedule has been reconfigured to match all the other districts. And we pretty much fell right in line as it was. Some of the other districts really had to do some moving around. What else do I have? Students that need to drop off their toolboxes can do so on August 28th. Juniors will begin on Monday, August 31st, and attend 8 a.m. to 10:30, and seniors will begin Wednesday, the 2nd of September, from 12:20 to 2:30. It's anticipated at this point that regular hours will begin in October, but we'll see what happens. We also went over the financials as well, and if I screw something up, I have a backup now. A fair amount of money was saved due to the students not being able to travel to end-of-the-year competitions, which was unfortunate, but that's what happened. Adult education had the deficit spend to begin the year due to the closure, but after 5 years of operating in the black, the loss was not as bad as it could have been. The state provided $25,000 to the adult education fund for their COVID funding, and in the neighborhood of $500,000 is coming from the CARES Act for PPE. We're gonna try to see if some of those funds can be diverted to ascertain if certain programs, present programs and certain new ones can be maybe take off after the pandemic is over, if there's some that, really comes to the forefront. Polaris has the flexibility to do that. On the restart, this is very good stuff. It's 20% are obviously going to online, so we're taking care of 72% of the students, at least in some form as far as in-person learning. And anybody that has any frustration with the district or anger as far as how we're setting things up, I think some of the anger and frustration, we're all frustrated, but some of the frustration can be displaced because really we're just recipients of a lack of a cohesive national strategy, state strategy. It just, we've seen how the whole thing has happened through the year, and this is a result of that. And we're learning, going on the fly. I mean, what I've seen from other districts, we're not doing anything really remarkably different.
Right.
The fact that we have a small amount of students as opposed to a Solon or Akron
Right.
works in our benefit because we have a lot more flexibility in that. And, the billboard looks really good. Rich Park Square. I was glad to see that. I can be reached at james.oper@bcshurricanes.org or at 216-485-8195. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Oper. And Mr. Singer?
Yes, I have really no report, but I just want to piggyback on what Jim had said about the billboards. Nice to see the graduates of 2020 up there, kind of like the cherry on top of the sundae. So for parents to drive by and see their graduates on the billboard. I hope that becomes a tradition for us too.
Yes.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Singer.
Bonnie, I did forget one thing.
Okay.
Dr. Ted mentioned it. We had unbelievable response to the surveys. There's, what, you said over 70% of the families
Yeah,
responded?
we had about 940, 950 students represented in the 613 student surveys.
So I kind of prodded some parents. Thank you for responding. It's very helpful. To the small percentage that didn't, you still got time. So we'd like to see it. And we are going to reserve that in case anybody questions those numbers.
We're not closing it. Yeah, it's open. We're not closing it by any means.
Thank you.
The more we can have, the better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would just like to say, I agree about the billboard. I think it's, I know we've done it for several years now, and it's something a tradition that I think that the students and the families appreciate. I would just like to say that I hope everyone takes the time to watch the full meeting and our opening plan, and everyone is very flexible, because some of these things, like Mr. Oper said, where everyone's doing their own thing, but I think sometimes there's like a sweep of where we have to do something and it's out of our control, or so that got to be able to be flexible and expect the unexpected. So we can plan as much as our heart's content, but then we never know what's going to come up next. Every day is different. But I can always be reached at 216-406-4304 if anyone would like to speak to me. And now on to the reading and approval of minutes. And tonight's reader is Mr. Slattery.
Thank you. There's a lot, so I'm going to take my mask off. Everybody else has theirs on, so we will go on to resolve that the minutes of the June 11th, June 24th, 2020, July 13th, 2020 Special Board of Education meeting, and the June 29th, 2020 regular meeting of Board of Education meeting be adopted, and all action taken by the Board of Education at said meeting is hereby reaffirmed and approved.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for September 2018 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskins, a copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
I'm voting no, but I should have actually made this in a comment. I truly believe we have a new treasurer and a new assistant treasurer, and I believe that they deserve a fresh start and not to be tied to any of the financial statements that are up for adoption tonight. I have, number one, looking at these things, there's 23 months that are up for adoption tonight. I was not here for 16 of those months, roughly. So I don't think it would be fair for me to make a decision and vote on that. But number two, I have stated this before, I have great concerns for the lack of sound business practices coming out of office, so that's the reason I'm gonna continue to vote no on all of these tonight.
Mrs. Barcheck?
I wanted to say that, before I give my vote, my vote is yes, that I, wanted to say that, I agree with Mr. Slattery and what he said. I just feel that our, new treasurer and our new assistant treasurer, giving them a clean slate. So, you know, moving forward, I'm a yes with this.
Thank you.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for October 2018 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, a copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements of November 2018 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskins, a copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, I would also like to put this episode behind us. I mean, I'm voting yes, but it's not, it's basically just to put this to rest and go forward.
Okay. Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for December 2018 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for January 2019 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for February 2019 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
That was February?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
All right.
we're on.
We're in March.
Let me make sure I click the next one. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for March 2019 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for April 2019 submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, a copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for May 2019 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, a copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statement for June 2019 submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, a copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for July 2019 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, a copy of which is attached here to incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for August 2019 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, a copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for September 2019 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, a copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for October 2019 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for November 2019 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, copy of which is attached hereto incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Can I have questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for December 2019 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for January 2020 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Can I have questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for February 2020 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for March 2020 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for April 2020 submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements for May 2020 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statement for June 2020 as submitted by Treasurer David Hoskin, copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent enter into an attached agreement with Connect for the term of 3 years, commencing on July 1st, 2020, and ending June 30th, 2020.
That's not, yeah,
That
3
should
years.
be,
2023?
that should be a 1-year
A
contract.
one-year
That should be,
contract?
yeah,
Okay.
well, you need to amend that. That should be a 1-year contract.
Okay, 1-year contract commencing on July 1st, 2020, ending June 30th, 2021.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
This is our, this is our technology service, so they help maintain our infrastructure, on our technology systems, some services through our treasurer's office. So it'll be a 1-year agreement, and we'll reevaluate that come next spring.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mrs. A, what's your opinion of the contract with Connect?
I think a 1-year contract is good because I'm used to working with Connect at Polaris, but I'm also up to looking into other services because there's a lot of turnover in Connect, so I am also agreeing to look for. I agree with
I think it's
Dr.
good to have
Tubbs.
some different options. You know, I've worked with another organization through both Sandusky and through when I worked at Cuyahoga Heights, and I think we would do ourselves a disservice if we didn't look at other opportunities. But doesn't mean we won't be back with Connect. But I think we need to look at all our options going in the spring. So that's why a 1-year contract was fitting.
So you're gonna make a recommendation to the finance committee then
We'll work through it.
to look at other providers, service providers?
Yes.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer,
No.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
I had to make sure I knew how to say that. Okay, resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment of the following classified personnel for the 2020-2021 school year.
We
Anthony
missed
Jo.
4.2.
I'm sorry?
Did you go to 4.3? Because we're
Oh,
at
he's at 5.1.
5.1. Oh, so we're.
Whoa, I
we-
skipped
you're-
the whole-
Yeah, you need to
Oh,
go
my
to
bad.
4.2.
4.2.
All right. Fat fingers. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby authorizes superintendent to enter into a contract agreement for school health services with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health for the 2021 and 2021-22 school year. Agreement on file in treasurer's office.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yes, I have a question. What's all this nonsense about replacing our school health nurse? You know, the gossip mill, the rumor mill
I'm not,
is out there.
yeah,
Are they changing staffing on us?
No,
Did we request a change in staffing?
no,
Did the staff request a change?
no, Mrs.
Rick, it
Manley,
was gossip.
Miss-
That's
Mrs.
all it was.
That went around probably 3-4 months ago. I got a phone call about
Well, I
that.
know, Rob.
I
I've
did
been
it.
going back
And
and
I was
forth.
like, there's never been any discussion about that.
Yeah.
No, I've heard nothing but good
Mrs.
things about it.
Mrs. Manley's our nurse for next year. I was in a meeting with her this afternoon. Yeah, I'm not really sure.
I mean, I assumed that everything was copacetic, but did somebody file a complaint against Mrs. Manley?
No.
It was gossip, that's what it was.
Okay.
Don't know where it started, but it was gossip, because I heard it too, I got a call on it too.
I never heard anything but good things about her.
Mrs. Manley's, I've known her a long time.
Oh, yeah, I think
She's an amazing lady.
I think
I
she's
know.
an asset, especially
That's why I was a
during
little
COVID.
surprised as,
Yeah,
well,
no, and,
who's driving his bus?
yeah, I'm not sure, Mr. Singer, I really don't know. I didn't hear that, and there's never been any conversation to,
I've
no,
never heard
not whatsoever.
This board's never heard one.
Yeah, she's definitely an asset, especially during this.
Well, that's why I was a little concerned that maybe the county was pulling her, or she had requested to be reassigned someplace else, or?
The phone call I got was, she was really upset, and she loves it here, and she wants to stay here, and
Yeah.
she was worried about us, and I'm like, unless
Now-
there's
now, what I-
conversations going around
What I will
behind.
say is,
my back. I don't know anything about
we're
it.
the only school district that is represented by Board of Health. And so they've
Right.
told us when Mrs. Manley does retire, they will discontinue school services. But that's only going to be because Mrs. Manley retires. So we're not in that position. You know, we were actually, Mrs. Jones facilitated a refund for us from spring services, so put that in my report to the board, but we'll be getting a refund from the Board of Health in somewhere in the neighborhood of $17,000 from spring that we didn't have Mrs. Manley working with us. So
That was nice.
it's a great relationship, and I'm gonna be honest with you, the fact that we have a connection to the Board of Health in this environment is an asset to everything that we're trying to do. So I've known her a long time. She's an amazing lady.
So we all concur, we all love Mrs. Manley.
We love Mrs. Manley. Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Mrs.
Somebody tell her to sign in and watch.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Mrs. A, can you
Thank
call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes,
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved by the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education, I hereby authorize the superintendent to enter into agreement with ESCLC for technology consulting services. Is it North 2H
Yes.
Technologies? I
Yes.
thought it was a typo. Technology consultant for the 2021 school year. The cost of $13,509.45. Agreement on file in Treasurer's Office.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
This is a company, this is a technology instructional tech consulting service through ESC of Lorraine County. I worked with them in Cuyahoga Heights, and they're gonna help with some of our instructional professional development for our staff throughout the school year. The cost of this contract has come out of grant funds. So it'll come out of Title IV grant funds, so it will be no impact on our general fund.
good to hear that.
Yep.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes,
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to enter into a contract with the city of Brooklyn to provide a full-time school resource officer for the 2020-2021 academic school year and continuing through 2024-2025 school year. Agreement on file with the Treasurer's Office.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
yes,
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Okay, pursuant to revised code 3313.48 and applicable laws, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves and enters into a memorandum of understanding with the Brooklyn Education Association, a copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein for the 2020-2021 school year only.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Just like to thank the BEA, Mrs. Blom, Mr. Keller, and our Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Kalish, for working so hard on this calendar. So thanks to them.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call?
thank you.
Can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes,
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby amends Resolution 20-03-88 to revise the 2020-2021 school calendar. See attachment.
Can I have a motion, please?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer.
yes,
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
All right, now I'm on 5.1, right?
No, you're on 4.7.
4.7.
How am I skipping these?
Fat fingers.
Telling ya. Jeez, pursuant to the board's bylaws 0131 and applicable laws, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby adopts Board Policy 1320.01 entitled Treasurer's Job Description, a copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein, effective July 29th, 2020.
Do we need to vote on that, or is this, since it's the first reading, we just need to announce it?
Just a first reading.
First
So-
reading.
Yeah.
So we can go into 4.8 and just read that one for
I
the first
did it
reading.
again. Hang on, I'm gonna get rid of all these, there we go. Pursuant to the board's bylaws 0131 and applicable laws, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby adopts Board Policy 1320.01 titled Assistant Treasurer Job Description, a copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein, effective July 29th, 2020.
Okay, now 4.9. Sorry, not giving you much of a
No,
break here.
keep me on track, please. Pursuant to the board bylaws 0131 and applicable laws, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby adopts Board Policy 1320.02, entitled Accounts Payable Officer, Exempt at Will, Job Description, a copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein, effective July 29th, 2020.
Okay.
And lastly, the superintendent recommends the first reading for the following policies and bylaws: 1415 severance, 1416 STRS, SERS pickup plan, 1416.01 Medicare pickup plan, 1417 holidays, 1433 vacations, and 1436 personal leave.
Thank you. Now on to 5.1.
Ms. Barczyk, just real quick, these are the, board members have the
The packet that
policies
you
in
gave
front
us
of them. This is a
also.
late addition. This is regarding, these policies are regarding the amendments to our administrative contracts so that those match.
Okay.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment following classified personnel for the 2020-2021 school year. Anthony Jones, classroom assistant, 6 hours, 55 minutes per day, Appendix B, Step 3. And Claire Santoro, classroom assistant, 6 hours, 55 minutes per day, Appendix B, Step 3.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
I have a question. If we're gonna run 5.5 hour days, are they gonna be here for 6:55?
They are.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, they are. The thought right now is that our classroom assistants will be helping with some of the overflow in terms of if we have our families who want to take advantage of the CATS program, they'll help fill that gap between 1:30, 3 o'clock until our CATS employees come in. So, yeah, they will,
Okay.
Mr. Neal,
It's
absolutely.
fine.
Good idea.
Okay. Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the granting of a limited contract to Carissa Stefanson, Title I tutor, 7.75 hours per day, 184 days, Step 2 for the 2020-2021 school year, to be paid from the annual federal Title I funding received by the school district.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
This hiring will be out of Title I, like it says, which is no impact on our general fund.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment of the following CATS preschool employees for the 2020-2021 school year. Kayla Patterson, CATS preschool general education teacher at $26.39 per hour, and Mary Matejka, okay. CATS preschool classroom assistant at $13.53 per hour.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Questions. On some of our new hires, is there something in the contract with them that quarantines them in case they get exposed to COVID?
There's nothing in the contract that we have specifically that I've seen regarding quarantine, but we would follow Board of Health guidelines in that situation.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves and enters into an employment contract with Tracy Spies. Copy of which is attached and hereto and incorporated herein for a period commencing August 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. Neither the statutory provision of the revised code, Chapter 124, nor revised code, Chapter 3319 includes but not limited to revised code 3319.02 and revised code 3319.081 shall apply to either Mrs. Spies' or the employment contract.
Okay. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Just want to welcome Tracy. I've known Tracy, was very fortunate to work with her in some of my interactions at the ESC of Northeast Ohio when I would go there for meetings, things like that. She comes with a wealth of experience, and looking forward to her supporting Mrs. Neal.
Do we have to, question, Dr. Ted,
Yes.
do we have to have her vetted through the civil service?
No, it's an exempt position, Mr. Singer.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they're not gonna fight?
No, they're not. Nope. No, it's an
Anyone
exempt
else?
position.
Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes, I have a quick question before we go forward. 5.3, the CATS employees.
Yes.
Are those CATS teachers, so are those just our preschool teachers?
One of them's a preschool teacher,
Okay.
and the other one's an assistant through the preschool also.
So why do we put those under CATS then? Why do we take that out of CATS money? I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Why-
and I'm gonna be honest with you, that's something that I'm inheriting that Mrs. A and I are gonna have to look at that going forward. I think that's been done since I probably was a middle school principal, but we'll look at that going forward,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, so this is just a preschool teacher, this isn't a CATS, she's not,
Correct.
we're just
correct.
taking, okay.
Yes, correct, yeah.
All right, yeah, I
And
just
I,
wondered
and I,
why
and
that
I,
is
and I
done.
and I see the confusion and I get it, and so we'll look at that going forward and clean that up from a
Yeah,
wording standpoint.
okay.
Yep.
All right. Sorry.
Brooklyn City, no, it's no problem. Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves and enters into an employment contract with Robert Black, copy of which is attached here to incorporated herein for a period commencing August 1st, 2020, ending June 30th, 2022. Neither the statutory provision of the revised Chapter 124 nor revised Chapter 3319, including but not limited to revised 3319.02 and revised Code 3319.081, shall apply to either Mr. Black or this employment contract.
Can I have a motion, please?
So move.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Very excited, Mr. Black is gonna be with us full-time now. I think with everything going on and our technology needs, it's gonna be a good addition, or good, additional addition.
We haven't voted yet.
Does Mr. Black realize what he's getting himself
And
into?
the screen went black.
We'll find out.
I have said no tonight.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Absolutely.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
All right, pursuant to revised code 3319.02 and applicable laws of Brooklyn City School District Board of Education, hereby approves and enters into an amended employment contract with Matthew Larson, a copy of which is attached here to incorporated herein, for a period commencing August 1st, 2020 and ending July 31st, 2022.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
No.
Next, pursuant to revised code 3319.02 and applicable laws of Brooklyn City School District Board of Education, hereby approves and enters into an amended employment contract with James Verba, copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein, for a period commencing August 1st, 2020 and ending July 31st, 2021.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Pursuant to revised code 3319.02, applicable laws of Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves and enters into an amended employment contract with Laura Smith, a copy of which is attached here to incorporated herein for a period commencing August 1st, 2020 and ending July 31st, 2021.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I
Second.
have a second? Thank you. Question, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Pursuant to the board law, bylaw 0131, board policy 1400, and applicable laws of Brooklyn City School District Board of Education, I hereby adopts the job description set forth. Board policy 1320.01, titled treasurer, job description, a copy of which is hereby attached here to and incorporated herein, effective July 23rd, 2020.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Question, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Pursuant to Board Bylaw 0131, Board Policy 1400, and applicable laws, Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby adopts a job description set forth in Board Policy 1320.01, titled Assistant Treasurer Job Description, a copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein, effective July 23rd, 2020.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Pursuant to Board Bylaw 0131, Board Policy 1400, and applicable laws, Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby adopts the job description set forth in Board Policy 1320.02, titled Accounts Payable Officer Exempt at Will Job Description, copy of which is attached hereto, incorporated herein, effective July 23rd, 2020.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a
Second.
second? Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District hereby approves the advance and return of $381.25 from 300-901A miscellaneous activity, that's high school, I'm assuming, HS, $1,757.84 from 019-9006, Asia Society Grant, $23,144.34 from 572-9019 Title I, $2,796.54 from the 590-9019 Title II-A, and $13,977.90 from the 599-9019 Title IV-A to the general fund.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Do we have any correspondence related to action information? Any other business?
Just a reminder of August 10th, right?
No, we have one next week. We have our next,
Yeah,
our
that's
next,
right, that's right, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No other business? Our next announcement of the next regular meeting of the Brooklyn Board of Education is Wednesday, July 29th, 2020, and that needs to say in the Media Center instead of the Treasurer's Office. We need to amend that. In the Media Center located at Brooklyn Board of Education, 9200 Bidoff Road, Brooklyn, Ohio, at 6 p.m. Motion for adjournment, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.